was going to be regime change and stuff, and it never happened, and they were probably upset about that.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, I just now today heard something, and we're rolling, by the way,
All
but
right.
I just now today heard something about um Iran for the first time in a long time. I was telling Chris a second ago, the last time that I heard much about Iran was, or Iran, whatever you want to say, we were bombing it. And yeah, apparently, I think what I read said that basically all I read, I just read a headline. It said that civilians are dying. So I don't, is the government actively killing their own citizens right now, or
Well,
I don't know
honestly,
what's
some
happening.
would say that they've never stopped. This
Yeah.
has been going on for years, but it may be something that was ramped up recently because they're basically like China. If you criticize the government, there's going to be repercussions for that. And honestly, all I saw was that there was unrest. I hadn't even seen the part about that they were killing people, that kind of thing. But it doesn't surprise me. But there's, in fact, I'll look it up. I don't know what the population of Iran is. There's a lot of people, and if they banded together, they could easily overthrow the government.
Yeah, that's,
Um,
I think a lot more. And hey, by the way, guys, if you notice some differences today, I'm acting producer, so it's it's going to look a little bit different, but we'll be all right. Like if the camera switches are kind of slow, that's me. That's because I'm I'm not used to this. Um,
Iranian population 92 million.
92. Oh yeah, that's big, especially when you consider, the United States is such a large landmass. When you squeeze that many people into, you know, most nations are similar in size to one of our states. So
And one of the things that is, I guess, a guiding conflict over there already all the time is there's three different sects uh of Islam that are all competing against each other. This one wants to be in charge, and this one wants to be in charge, and the other one wants to be. I think it's the Shias, the Sunnis, and there's another one I can't remember what it is, but
yeah,
there's three different sects, sects,
I knew
sects
about two,
of,
but now you're making me curious what the third is.
but they're all vying for power all the time.
Mhm.
So, uh, um,
And they probably look at us the same way. Like, how many different denominations do you
oh, that's right.
followers of Christ split into? But um, yeah, I knew. I guess Shia and Sunni I've known about.
It says Sunni, Shias, and Boras.
Boras. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to look into them. I don't really know anything about them.
It says major Islamic divisions are Sunni, Shia, and Ibadi.
Ibadi. I don't.
Ibadi.
Huh.
But anyway,
I've got some research into this.
the Sunnis are the largest branch. The Shias are 90 to 95% of the Muslim population.
So they make up way more than the vast. I mean, they're like,
The Sunnis are 5 to 10%,
huh.
and the others are going to be even smaller than that. So, but the Shias are the vast majority. You imagine that, okay? If we say we had look at America, Republicans, Democrats, and Independents. If the Republicans were 90 to 95%, that would be a huge shift. Here between Republicans and Democrats, it's almost right, at least right now, almost a even 50-50 split with a few small independents in there. But basically, Iran is run by the majority, the vast majority are Shias.
Yeah. So Sunnis that are in the minority.
Yeah, they're gonna be, let's not beat around the bush. We all know about Islam and how it treats people. They're going to
Yeah.
be mistreated.
Oh, yeah, for
The
sure.
the minorities are always gonna be mistreated because they're gonna be viewed as, you know, really realistically subhuman is how they view them if you don't agree with their particular branch of Islam.
Yeah. I, at some point, need to, just for the sake of having knowledge about it, I need to read into the Quran more, because I've read a good bit of the Bible. I've still got a ways to go. But I have run across a few, I don't even know if you call them verses, scriptures, uh, as it relates to the Quran, but I've certainly read some that are concerning, um, that seem to justify, um, things that we would never justify in certain instances, including violence. But I mean, there are some sections of the Old Testament that talk about violence in a manner that you wouldn't expect to be in the Bible. But, you know, to me, that goes to show you why we have the Old Covenant versus the New Covenant that we're under now.
Sure.
So, um, I don't,
ChatGPT says nationwide protests began ongoing since late December, uh, evolving from economic grievances into one of the most widespread challenges to Iranians. It's one of the most widespread challenges to Iran's government in years, it says. Um, Protests began over hyperinflation. Wow, hyperinflation protest. Uh, Rising cost of living and economic hardship. Uh, Golly, we could be talking about America here.
yeah.
Uh, Demonstrations spread to all 31 provinces of Iran, with shopkeepers, workers, students, and ordinary citizens joining along. Thousands, possibly tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets nationwide.
Are they, this, I guess I ought to know this, but there's been so many other stories that I haven't read as much on Iran as I should have. But are these protests simply because they're tired of their leadership?
Correct.
That's
And this is something that would never go here. If you want to talk about some trouble that there would be here, the government has shut down all cell phone and internet communication.
ooh,
Now you want to talk about
Iran.
now
Iran does
that's
it.
right. You can't really organize that great that way. However, you want to see some unrest in the streets, you shut down phones and internets here. In internet.
Oh yeah, I mean, you shut down TikTok and people would be burning buildings
That's
within
right.
3 hours, probably.
That's
But
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
people's cell uh people's cellular service goes out for an hour and they want a refund here.
oh yeah, or like the power goes out and we're all calling the utility company asking them what's going
That's
on.
right.
I'd like to know every time there's a storm anywhere in the United States, how many people call the local utility company. I know it's got to be millions.
Well, honestly, now that's why just about every time you call, now you used to get somebody immediately, a real person immediately when you call. Now you get the automated,
Yeah,
so that you don't even get to talk to a real human until they ask you a few questions and see if they really want to talk to you.
yeah. Nowadays you got to be like, send me to a representative. Send me to
That's
her.
right.
if you feel like being a Karen or whatever about it. But I
That's
mean,
right.
sometimes you need to speak to a human. Sometimes a machine can't resolve your issues. So, but sometimes it can. So I'm sure I'd do the same thing. I wouldn't want to, and there's probably no way that they feasibly could take every call, so they have no choice but to do that.
Yeah, I have taken to nearly every time, talking to the automated person, uh, I'll say representative, and they'll say,
Yeah,
"Well, let me see if I can help you first," and I'll say, "Well, you probably can't, but go ahead and try."
yeah. I'm sure that's the vast majority of us probably. Um, Yeah, speaking of religious matters, I also saw, and I should have read more into this too. I think I saw where a synagogue. Yeah, somebody mentioned this in our study the other day about the synagogue getting burned down.
Yeah, we had uh, a young person, teenager, but at least of age because his name was mentioned. Uh, I haven't seen a reasoning. I haven't seen the
I haven't either.
motivation behind it, but we did have uh, a synagogue here in our capital city in Jackson. I'm not, and honestly, I haven't even seen the extent of the damage either, but was burned over the weekend, or at least the beginning of this week.
Yeah. I haven't looked deeply into it either. I did see one sentence, something about, um, you know, synagogue of Satan, which that that line gets used a lot about and I'm gonna say all this even if I shouldn't get in trouble because I've got a little bit of Jewish myself, but the there's a portion of the Bible, I can't remember what scripture, if it's Revelation or what, but that talks about the synagogue of Satan. So I'm assuming that's where that line came from, but simply that one line to me is not enough motive. There's got to be more behind that than just simply Jews are evil. But I don't know. Sometimes that is enough motivation for certain people to do things. But you would like to think that there's. I mean, obviously, there's not going to be any good answer for burning down something, but you would like to think that there's a better reason than just all of one type of people are evil. You know.
That's right. Well, we ought to have learned by now. This is 2025. How many times have people gotten in trouble or realized they made mistakes by lumping everybody into one category? You judge every person based on the content of their own character. We know that, and we
Hmm.
all should be doing that. Uh, and even then, we're to give a measure of grace to everybody. And you know, we talked about this before, uh, back during the time that Charlie Kirk was shot. That we all should be able to express our own opinions without fear of any kind of violent retribution. We all should be able to even have different disagreements and argue without having to get mad and say that this person doesn't deserve to live. These kind of things shouldn't be going on, at least in a civilized world. Shouldn't be going on.
Yeah, we definitely in some ways are deteriorating. Certainly when it comes to openly expressing different opinions. Um, I yeah, we've I don't know if it started. It almost feels like about the time that I graduated college that we just. It almost feels like we've jumped off of a cliff sometimes. In terms of just there's always some sort of bad story or and I
Yeah, and like we talked about before, this is not something that I have really ever fully understood. But you know, again, now today, and most of this is coming from one side. I don't mind telling you that uh, most of this violent disagreement is coming from the left. But uh, it's not that, again, not that they just disagree with you. They think that you have lost your right to live in certain instances if you disagree with them, and that's just it boggles my mind. It's a psychotic way of thinking that just because I disagree with you, uh, name the issue, whether it's abortion or uh, any other kind of hotbed issue. If you disagree with me, you don't deserve to draw breath. And that's just it's asinine to me that people reach that level.
well, it's like you've said plenty of times before in that everything in the world is basically the opposite of what the Bible tells you to do. And
Amen.
so if your entire existence is self-preservation and self-interest, it in a twisted way, all a lot of the things that they're doing make sense from that point of view
Oh, sure.
because if you're only worried about yourself, but that's the problem. The world has a pretty large population of people in it, and we can't just think about ourselves. Um, we have to be concerned with everybody to some extent if we want the world to be a good place and a better place. Um, but yeah, and I know that I don't I don't know if there was ever a point where I guess there was a point where news wasn't covering stories 24/7 all day every day.
That's right.
I don't know how long I don't know
Yeah,
what
most of
year
the time,
that
if something didn't happen by 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 10 o'clock at night, you didn't find out about it till the next day.
yeah. So I'd be curious to know what year we started with the 24/7 news coverage thing.
It's been a few years now.
Yeah.
We basically all of that started when cable got big.
Mhm.
Whenever I think I think, and I may be wrong about this, I'll check in a second, but I think that CNN was the first network to go 24 hours with their news coverage.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have to be either them or Fox, one way or the other, or maybe both of them around the same time. But yeah, I would not be surprised if that's correct. Um, ooh, excuse me. There was another big story that I saw too that I was trying to think of. What was it here? Don't slip my mind. Um, oh yeah, and this might be uh another polarizing topic or whatever you would say, but I also saw where today I think the Supreme Court was trying to make some sort of ruling about whether transgender folks can play sports on on what am I trying to say here?
Um,
Basically, men, men playing against women
Correct.
or boys playing against girls. Um, and it, as I was watching it, I don't know, it still baffles me that this is even a discussion. And I'm not here to beat up on people's free will choices. Now, granted, there are plenty of free will choices people can make that I can disagree with, and that's fine. But it's one thing to disagree with someone's choice, but it's another thing when you start encountering when other people start facing the consequences of that choice, it becomes
Sure.
more of a problem. Um,
I you know, and I don't know why it would be. Well, I know why it is because people are trying to counteract Trump because when he came in office the first day, he signed an executive order that was banning those kind of sporting activities that involved males against females. But there were several instances of women being injured because of that. However, you know how it is. The left always wants to jump in and give their 2 cents, and when they try to, and they can. There's two other branches of government, and if they band together, they can override Trump. That's the way our system works. And
mhm.
uh, but we all know it shouldn't be happening. Sane people know that it shouldn't be happening. Um, and it's just it's a shame that you know supposedly bright, logical, reasonable people think it's okay for a boy to stand up and say, "Yeah, I feel like a girl today, so I'm a girl." Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. We got to agree with you. I mean, I don't know when that happened, but
Yeah. I mean, not like I said, people are free to use their free will and have their opinions, but just
I don't
because,
have to agree with you.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Just because I have an opinion doesn't mean anybody is mandated to agree with my opinion.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, if I ever encountered somebody that agreed with all of my opinions, I'd be a little bit concerned about that because I'd feel like, yeah, now you're I don't know, trying to deceive me or something. But
That's right. If I met somebody that completely agreed with me every time, I would think they had a few screws loose just like me. So
Oh, so you're crazy too. Yeah.
oh, yeah. I'm and that's one of the things that what makes me a little bit smarter than some other people. I readily admit that I'm aware of that.
Yeah. Um, I to me, these sort of things, the real big difference, and I'm not trying to offend folks with this, but I mean, it's just true. There's a difference between intellectual capacity and wisdom, or the ability to make good decisions. Um, and to me, pretty much the only source of wisdom is the Bible, the
Amen.
God's word.
You have to have a basis for the truth that you assert. Your uh, your basis for morality, your basis for truth has to come from somewhere. It has to be rooted somewhere. Uh, and here's the thing: the other side who believes there's no God, the other side who believes in things that are totally against what I believe. If what they say is true, then where do they get their basis for morality from? If there is no God, if the Bible is not true, where do you get your grounding and basis for morality? You gotta get it from somewhere.
By living my truth.
That's right.
That's what people like to say now. My truth,
That's
your
right.
truth. No, there is no my truth, your truth. There is only the truth.
That's right.
That if there's ever been a relatively new saying that drives me crazy, it's when people say my truth. I don't know why that drives me crazy, but it does.
Well, just like you
Um,
said, it's because there is only one truth.
yeah,
And, for you to assert that there is another way of thinking just because you want to think that way, uh, it there's no validity to it. If I say, for instance, if I believe that anything that I can put my hands on becomes mine,
yeah,
uh, we will
yeah,
probably have trouble with each other,
yeah. I believe that I get to make all the decisions for the government of the United States. So call me King Kevin.
That's right.
um, yeah, I don't know. We're getting to the point to where this is gonna sound ugly. I don't know how to make it sound any other way. It's getting to the point to where if you have read the Bible or you've educated yourself on scripture, sometimes it feels like ha- having these discussions sometimes feels like you're trying to explain to an 8-year-old why 2 plus 2 is, or I mean, you know, that's
Well,
8-year-olds are
I
a little
mean,
more advanced than that, but it's like you're trying to, I don't know, teach somebody their multiplication timetables or whatever.
and no offense to anyone, but the problem and what you're saying there is right and correct because people are acting like 8-year-olds. That's the reason. That's the reason that we have new things like Common Core math because we've given up on teaching students the real way to understand math. We give them a supposedly easier way because we're trying to dumb it down.
Yeah. Yeah, the to me, Common Core was one of the first, I almost feel like you could mark that as one of the first turning points of when
Common
things
Core
start
math
going south.
Common Core math was a clue that we had given up on society.
Yeah. Um, man, I when I was going through school, I did not like math at all, so I would have loved to know that there are loopholes to math, even though I know that there aren't any, but because the very nature of math is that X plus Y equals whatever,
I kind
there's
of feel like Common Core is one of those things that's like, they're saying they got close to the answer, good enough, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you can make estimates, but sometimes precision is a necessary thing.
Amen.
We can't if we estimate everything, or like somebody builds your house or builds a building and they just estimated everything. That's how you end up with the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Kevin, one of the things that people don't really talk about, or at least I haven't heard them talk about. One of the main reasons that Common Core became a thing
Mm-mm.
is because of federal funding. Uh, If
It
you
gave
don't
them
have a
more
certain
federal
number
fun
of people pass, you lose federal money if you don't have enough people pass.
now that makes a lot more sense, for
So they
sure.
brought these things in to supposedly make things easier, you know, for to to teach, but it was also to make it easier for students to pass. And when you do that, you don't lose your federal funding. So I'm convinced that the main motivator in all of this, in the National Education Association, the NEA, bringing this in was to make things easier for their staff so they could bring in the federal money.
Yeah, that would be as good a reason as any. So, I mean, I'm sure you're right about that, but concerning for sure, very concerning. I mean, I don't even I don't
It's kind of Kevin. It's kind of hard to see where we go from here. You think just when you think, well, this is we've reached rock bottom. Think people aren't going to any dumber.
somebody
They
digs
can't get any
deeper.
dumber. Things aren't gonna get worse.
Yeah.
Then every freaking day, something comes up to where you think, "Oh, wow, we're digging. We've actually reached a new low now."
Yeah. We're going all the way to the core, baby.
That's
Core of
right.
Earth. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a weird time to be alive for sure. Um,
And you would think that as easy as we have it, uh, America's still the greatest country to live in. With all our troubles, it's still the greatest country in the world, greatest country to live in. You would think that we would be more appreciative. We would be the people who are setting the standards and teaching people how to live, uh, a moral life, if nothing else, and we can't even do that.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure we've had this discussion several times before, but it all starts or it all should start at an well, it does start at an early age in your home. If you do not have good parents or good guardians, if if you're not with your biological parents, if you do not have somebody to teach you right from wrong, to mentor you, to read the Bible with you or encourage you to read it yourself, then your up is going to be down and down is going to be up.
It's
You're
tough.
not going to know the difference. Yeah. Um, I mean, we can educate ourselves some later on in life, but that's, I'm not defending people being, you know, atheist or secular or not believing in God, whatever you want to call it. But had I grown up in a home, me personally, had I grown up in a home where I was not taught any of these things, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I was of a similar mindset to
Sure.
some of these folks.
It's definitely, and we've talked about this before, it's definitely an advantage for people. I grew up in a good home as far as, morals. I grew up in a pastor's home. Both my parents, taught me right from wrong, taught me, the things that I need to know to succeed in life, and, I'm fortunate for that. Now, I know people and have been good friends with people who were raised in horrible homes. But they turned their lives around when they were introduced to the truth, and they were able to make something out of their lives and, become extremely productive citizens, not only, in their community secularly, but also in a church and become leaders in the church. But they're at such a disadvantage when you're raised in a home that doesn't treat you like God says children should be treated.
Yeah, and those people deserve a lot of credit because
Amen.
they are by far the exception. Most people do not
Sure.
are not even capable of that. Um, it takes a massive turnaround to be able to do that.
And we can point you to statistics just in the United States. Uh, our our extreme rise in crime over the past 50, 60, 75 years is in direct correlation to children being raised in single parent homes without both parents. And it has completely turned around crime wise, shot through the roof with the rise in single parent homes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's basically just connect the dots. The rise in single parent homes comes from hookup culture.
That's right.
if everybody believes it's okay to sleep around and do whatever you want to do, then of course you're going to have a lot of children born
That's right.
outside of marriage. So, um, and even, I mean, obviously, since the world is imperfect, you're never going to stop all of that. But even if we had a bunch of people being born outside of marriage, if that two-parent household were to stay together, even if it was outside of marriage, we'd still at least be a little bit better off than what we are now.
That's right.
Because it seems like where we are now is, you know, people sleep together, have a child, and then they part ways. And that's, to me, it probably sounds terrible to people that, like I said, don't read the Bible or are not followers of Christ, but I feel like that's where most of our problems are coming from. Um,
And I heard uh, this very argument the other day, and it's true. It's brilliant. Uh, I think it was Andrew Wilson. You know Andrew Wilson? I think we talked about
uh,
him before.
I've heard the name, but I
Really
can't
good,
think who.
really good logical thinker guy, and he, was making the argument uh, to a group of women that he was talking to, who were feminists, by the way, uh, and they were just really harping, really coming down on men that they describe as deadbeat dads. We all know what deadbeat dads are, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And just made the argument that uh, he asked the question, "Why are you coming down so hard on deadbeat dads when all they're doing is exercising their freedom not to participate or support this child's life? And you're doing the same thing every day when you cry that you have the right to kill your baby."
Yeah.
It really is no difference in the way of thinking, but you couldn't get anybody to agree to that when it's absolutely the same on both sides.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is the same thing. Uh,
If you want to have the right to end your pregnancy, a father should have the right to say, "I'm not gonna participate in this child's life, nor am I gonna support it." Okay? Now look, I want you to know I'm against both of those.
yeah,
Okay?
same,
However,
same.
if you're going to argue from one side, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have, well, the father has to support, but I don't have to. You know,
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. A father should be in their child's life, and you know, it's not just your body when you decide to murder a child. I mean, I know
that's
I'm gonna catch hate for that, but
no,
it is
that's
what
the
it
kind
is.
of thing you run into, like we talked about before. That's the kind of thing you run into when you have no grounding purpose for your truth. All right. You're left by saying, well, you take what we described the other day as a buffet option. I'm gonna take a little bit of this. I don't want any of that. I'm gonna take a little bit of this, and then you come up with your own system that, rightfully so, nobody else wants to live in.
Yeah.
When you're not all going by the same set of rules and the same set of standards to get the actual truth from, conflict is what happens.
Hmm. Um, and to sort of jump topics a little bit here. I'm sure you've heard. It's probably been. I know it's been at least 3, maybe 4 weeks since we've done a recording. So a lot has happened in that time, and one thing that keeps popping up in my head that's being talked about a lot recently is well, Canada, the discussion about making Canada a state probably started way before this, but I guess sometime over the past few weeks, all of a sudden now we're talking about Greenland
That's right.
too. Um, you,
And both of those are actually catching traction a little bit.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's typically it doesn't take me long to form an opinion on things, but I'm not really sure how to feel on these
And
topics.
here's the thing. What's funny is, and this is generally the case almost across the board, Trump will say something like that about adding Canada or buying Greenland, as he says. Um, the politicians roll their eyes and talk about how stupid Trump is and that kind of thing. And then you find out that the actual everyday citizens in both of those countries, they want that. It's just the politicians are the ones who are making a big deal of it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's certainly, and again, I can never know.
I'll say by and large they want it. Maybe some don't.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I can never know exactly whether it's half and half, a third, three fourths, because anytime, my only way of being able to see where people disagree is social media or, TikTok or whatever. And there are definitely plenty of Greenlanders and Canadians that are like, we don't want any part of of the US. So I don't know. I don't know whether it's half and half or one third want it and three fourths don't. I don't know. But
I tell you what I want to ask you about. We haven't talked about this because we haven't been on in a few weeks. Uh, what's your opinion of Maduro in Venezuela?
oh yeah. Yeah, we never did discuss that either. Um these are really, to me,
Aside from the part that he found out Trump wasn't lying.
yeah, all of these topics to me are hard for me to form my opinion on because I feel like I can sort of see both sides. Like I can see where there are definitely strategic advantages to claiming more territories. Obviously there's
Well, I
going to
don't
be
really think that was what it was
advantages.
about.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of different anytime somebody decides to potentially alienate all of our, and I'm not trying to beat up on Trump here, but when we make a decision to potentially alienate our NATO allies, there's definitely going to be a lot of reasoning behind that.
Sure.
Um, I, and this is just what I've read. I don't, I can't verify this obviously, but I've heard well, I'm pretty sure the thing about Venezuela is true. They have very large supplies of oil, and Trump has spoken about that. And then I've heard that Greenland has a lot of rare earth minerals, and then also just its location in the ocean and towards the Arctic. Um, it's sort of a strategic area that I think the concern is, at least with Trump, is he's concerned that China or Russia will control that region if we don't.
Mhm.
I think is his main concern. But going back to your question about Maduro, or what do I think about that? I certainly think from a military standpoint, it's it's an it's an impressive thing that our special operators were able to do that as quickly as they were.
Just basically dropping on his back porch, you know?
Yeah. It goes to show you that you don't wanna pick a fight with these guys. These guys are something else. But I mean, now even though I give the special operators a lot of credit, from what I've heard, we use some sort of sound wave technology that
Mhm.
nobody seems to know exactly what it is. And I'm sure that's true because for us to be able to do something like that in like under 3 hours, I want to say that's unheard of for just boots on the ground. I don't, you would think that for a head of state, they would be potentially dealing with thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of troops. I don't know how large their army is, but
I think it also points to the readiness. You know, in America, and we like to think that, uh, especially those surrounding our important leaders are always at the ready, okay? Now we had an instance, just was it either a year ago maybe? Where we had somebody actually, uh, jump the fence at the White House, and I'm talking about
yeah.
make it inside the White House before they encountered an actual, hands-on Secret
Yeah,
Service agent. Now
I remember
that's an
that.
atrocity. That's an
Yeah.
atrocity. However, you're also dealing with, like, people you talk about over in Venezuela, they may have never suspected that the U.S. was, I'll say, willing to do that. So they probably weren't ready.
Yeah. What you just said right there, I think is another reason for why it happened. Certainly not the only reason or even, the greatest reason, but I definitely think that Trump wanted to make a statement, certainly to China and Russia. And I feel like Russia's involvement in Ukraine has made a lot of the world feel like it's time that we push back a little bit and
Hmm.
make a statement. But then again, if you're Putin, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a defender of Putin. He's you know, even if I get in trouble for saying this, but he's killed a lot of people. I view Putin as a murderer. Um, but what I will say, uh, if I were to be in Putin's corner for just a minute, is if I have other organizations encroaching on my territory, I can sort of understand why you would start to feel threatened a little bit.
Sure.
If you've got a border that made up of, I don't even know off the top of my head how many NATO countries. But I can understand feeling a little bit threatened by your neighbors, but to me, that never justifies mass murder. I mean, and then China and Russia want to turn around and tell us things like you're breaking international law by going into Venezuela. Well, what are you doing when you invade a country and kill 100,000 people, 1,000,000 people?
Well, look, we have already done stupid things like, I don't even want to get started on the UN today, but China is a part of the Human Rights Council at the UN. Let that sink in. China, who kills the Uyghurs over there,
Slave labor to,
they have instituted a one-child policy at every home. Uh, if you do get pregnant, they're gonna abort your child for you without you asking. Uh, if you have protests in the streets, they're gonna get the, military out there and probably shoot you or run over you with a tank like Tiananmen Square. Uh, they're on the Human Rights Council.
they're also, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're also known for persecuting
That's
Christians, if
right.
I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Well, that's what I'm talking, the Uyghurs over there are well, they're Muslim, but, you can't even talk about Christ, in China without being asked, or they'll put you in jail.
Yeah. But anyway, whether it's Maduro or the discussion on Greenland or Canada, to me, what this all says is we have to be really careful right now and make really good decisions right now because, I mean, people have been saying it for a while, but edging closer to World War III is certainly where we are right now.
Yeah, to answer your question, 6 NATO countries border Russia.
Oh, just I actually thought it was more than that, but still, I mean,
Now I'll name them for you. Now they're not, no offense to them or no offense to anybody who lives in these countries, they're not juggernauts as far as military goes, but we could, since we're a NATO country as well, we could use their facilities. But Finland, Norway, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. So
yeah,
they're not they're not the SEC when it comes to when it comes to military power.
yeah. But then, even though these countries aren't on the border of Russia, I guess what they're thinking is if you have France, Spain, Portugal, the UK,
Sure.
and all these folks, if they start stacking troops into those uh, allied countries, I guess that's where Putin's feeling concerned.
Well,
I
I'll
don't
be
know.
honest with you, just like other leaders, uh, I really don't believe that Putin is worried about anything. I really don't. I don't think he's worried about anybody invading them. I don't think he's worried. I think that he's doing this just for Putin. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, if they have hypersonic nuclear capable missiles, then he's definitely not worried about anything
I mean,
because
yeah, why would you be?
if you have that capability, I mean, nobody's gonna force you to do anything because you have the ability to press a button and kill 300,000 people just like
Well,
that.
here's the thing. We have, and I think we've talked about this before as well. Most of the nations have theirs on a hair trigger anyway. The ones that have, if let's say, God forbid, because I don't want this to happen, of course. God forbid, Russia launches 3 or 4, 5 nuclear weapons. Well, guess what happens? All the other countries do too. We're
Mhm.
all gone. If one country launches, we're all gone.
Yeah, there
So
was I don't know if it was a philosopher or what, but well, it had to be somebody in recent history because nuclear weapons were what invented in the 40s or something.
that's right.
But somebody said that, you know, the war that we fight with nuclear weapons, the next war will be fought with sticks and stones, and that's true. I mean, if we had a scenario,
That's if you survive the
yeah,
nuclear.
that's
Yeah.
if we have a scenario where some people by some miracle survive after every nation starts shooting nukes at every other nation, yeah, there we're cavemen again.
And three
It's not
quarters.
not a good scenario.
That's right. Three quarters of the people that survive will have some kind of cancer. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
fallout, the radiation, all that kind of stuff. In some instances, I've heard it described that those that survive would have it worse than those that died in it.
Oh, no doubt. And the other problem with the radiation and the radiation sickness is it doesn't just come and then go after even a year or two. You're talking about something that can stick around for hundreds of years.
And you're also talking about
Um,
even if you were to survive and be able to propagate the earth, that comes with birth defects. That comes with all
mhm.
kind of things that pass on generations past the person who was affected by it.
Yeah, we have got to figure out a way to make it to where our nuclear capabilities aren't just in the hands of so few. I mean, I know that at least ours are probably in pretty trustworthy hands, but something so devastating, no matter who or what individuals have the nuclear codes, to me, it's still not enough assurance.
Well, it's
It's
kind of it is strange a little bit. Um, you may have a different handle on or a different viewpoint than I do about the different countries. Say, for instance, let's look at Iran. Of course, nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I get that. Nobody wants Iraq to have one. But guess what? Pakistan has them. I mean, and I'm not downing Pakistan or I'm sure the Pakistani people are good, but the Pakistani government is just like any other government. They're going to do stuff that is probably stupid sometimes. How different is Pakistan than Iran or Iraq?
yeah.
I
No,
mean, I'm just
that's
wondering because I really don't know.
I mean, I don't have much of a uh I don't know, better understanding on that topic than you do, I don't think. I think what you said a minute ago described it pretty well, which is that sometimes our leaders do foolish things and you don't want somebody to make it if you make a foolish decision and nobody dies, then okay, fine, we can deal with that. But if you make one foolish decision and a million people die, that's a problem.
Sure.
Um, I mean,
Well,
that's
man,
putting
you
it
look at
mildly.
you look at the different countries, and I look at it from a stability standpoint. Okay, are there some stupid people that I wouldn't want in power in America? Sure. Do I think they're going to launch a nuclear weapon? No, I don't. People that at least acted like they were afraid of Trump doing that, I think are just is just stupid. That's just wanting somebody to scaremongering. However, in a country like Pakistan, and I don't know how stable they are, okay? But in a country like Pakistan, is it conceivable that somebody could overthrow the government there that was just crazy and launch weapons? I mean, I think you would have to say that the possibility of that happening was a lot stronger than America or some other country like that.
Yeah, and going back to that topic of Venezuela, Greenland, and Canada. I can't help but wonder, even if the decision was, okay, we're gonna take Greenland by force. Um, everybody says, UN can't do anything because we fund the UN, and we do spend, or we at least in the past have accounted for a large portion of their funding, but that doesn't mean that they can't all come together and all of a sudden decide that we're not an ally anymore and start shooting missiles at us. And
That's
so, I mean, I hope that whatever happens with Greenland and Canada, whether it ends up being part of us or it doesn't, I hope that they make good decisions there, because if not, that's something that can potentially get a lot of people killed. Um, you know, you can never make light of trying to take more territory. And I know that in our history books, at least when I was in school, we were taught about manifest destiny and the American desire to take over the whole continent. And we've done a lot of that, but should that continue on into the modern day, you know, it's a tricky subject. There, like you said, there are plenty of people that would love to be part of the United States, but there's also plenty of people that have no desire to be part of us.
Well, and
So,
just like, I talked about the NEA earlier, about the reason that they wanted Common Core and that kind of thing. What's the driving factor that most countries wouldn't mind being a part of the United States?
what's the
What
driving
would be
factor
the
that they
what would be the
wouldn't?
main driving factor that most countries would wanna be part of the United States,
That they would want to be part of the United States?
if they do?
Uh, I mean, I'll give you 2, I guess. I mean, you want to argue economic better economic capabilities, but at the same time, we do have a large concentrated a large concentration of power in the hands of a few corporations. But I mean, there is, I would say, by and large, better economic opportunity here than a lot of other places.
Sure. And
Um,
that to me, you just named it, that would be the main motivating factor, and another is the freedoms that we have here, okay? Now, they're rapidly declining for sure, our friend. However, as bad as America is, it's still the freest country in the world, and we're still by far the most prosperous. Those 2 reasons alone are the main motivating factors. Now, does that mean that everybody who would be a part, uh, would want to vote and have the same ideals and morals as we do? No. Those kinda things have to be considered as well when you talk about bringing people in. But again, that's another story.
yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that perspective too of freedoms. Although, like you said, there are always freedoms that are under attack. But I see people from the UK, England, Ireland, Scotland, but especially England. I see them criticizing us a lot. But when I look at the UK, I'm like, you guys can get arrested over a bad social media post. So
Hey, man,
I don't.
people have been put in jail
Yeah.
because they put something online that offended someone.
Hmm. We all have our own unique problems. But yeah, I would never see myself tolerating living in a society that was locking people up because they didn't like your social media post.
Aside
And
from
you'd be way too busy, by the way, because think about how many lunatics are on social media
Oh, yeah,
posting things that, you know,
that's right.
you wouldn't have enough jail cells, in my opinion.
Aside from morality, aside from morals that the world has lost over the years, uh, the second that I'm most fearful about is the rapidly declining freedom of speech. That's the worst thing that could happen to a civilized society, is to say there are certain things you can say and certain things you can't. Um, from the get-go, Christians temper that because we're supposed to be a tempered people. We are supposed to make for sure that we only say things that are building up uh, and help people and are Christ-like from the get-go. However, when you start taking away the ability to criticize and the ability to uh, point out wrongs, talk about truth, talk about falsehoods, where do you go from there? Who decides uh, this is what's okay to talk about and this is what's not? And the only way to counteract that is you have to say it's okay to talk about everything.
Yeah, I'll tell you where you go from there. To me, there's only 2 options of where you go from there. It's either full-blown oligarchy or full-blown monarchy, and you're back to a king
Right.
or a queen. And eventually it gets to the point to where now not only can you be jailed, but people can decide that you're gonna be executed for saying something that
Right.
they disagree with.
Just for words, because
Mhm.
we live in a society now where half of the country agrees, because there's polls out there that I can show you. Half of the country believes that words are akin to violence.
Yeah. Oh, I've definitely heard that. That must be a leftist thing too.
Absolutely is.
'Cause I have heard that, and that's a crazy viewpoint. I mean, I argue with me all you want to, that's a crazy viewpoint.
Absolutely.
Um, you know, I I don't know. I You would think that since we've labeled certain rights the Bill of Rights and, like, amendment number 1 is the First Amendment, you would think that people would take that seriously, but this just goes to show why you have to continually educate people that certain things we were not intended to alter. I mean, I'm not saying that we should always stay the same for hundreds, if not thousands of years, but certain rights that we were given are God given, not,
Sure.
you know, yeah, it may be a document that was written by the forefathers and built into our government, but that certainly that Bill of Rights, and you could argue many more amendments in the Constitution, but certainly the Bill of Rights, to me, you cannot argue that those are not fundamental human rights.
Amen. You know, our just like you talked about, our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, uh, our forefathers understood it, and I believe that those who that are fathers of our nation, who were around for our first Congress, our first leaders, our uh, our leaders who signed the Declaration of Independence would roll over in their grave if they understood and knew how what our nation was going through right now as it pertains to freedom of speech. That would absolutely crush them.
I've had this thought lately, of like, man, I wish we could, it sounds ridiculous, but there are times where I've thought it'd be nice if we could temporarily bring some of these guys back and be like,
Oh,
"This is what we've got. Help us." Like,
no
we
doubt.
don't know what to do. We're this hasn't worked out probably the way that you envisioned that it was going to work out. So,
Well, I can tell you just about what
um,
would happen. They would be shouted down.
oh
They
yeah,
wouldn't have a leg to stand on. These people would I tell you what, they would have never risen to a level of any kind of power had they been alive today.
yeah,
They would have been looked at as absolute radicals.
yeah, and I mean, and there are always some that will try to take this as saying that, like, you know, the past were the best of days. There were plenty of immoral things that went on in their time, but to me, they at least got the Constitution right, or the Bill of Rights right,
Sure,
and
sure,
and I don't know. I'm continually baffled that people just want to up and decide that, well, that's old. That's not the case anymore.
right.
Um, like I said, if they put these things as the first few or the first 10 or whatever amendments, that should tell you that if that's what they immediately thought about after confronting the British and freeing themselves from a monarch.
And this is what I think that people don't truly understand. Even people on the left, if you really press them, they honestly don't agree with suppression of speech either. They really don't. It's just, when you ask them, they say, "Well, if you don't like all speech, what speech is okay?"
Yeah.
It's speech that's not offensive. Well, then what's the next logical question? Who decides what's offensive?
Yeah.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
I'll decide what's offensive. Well, w you never run out of who is deciding this. And when you get into questions like that, ultimately, it all boils down to whoever's in power. They're the ones who decide these things, and you can't live in a world like that.
Yeah. Yep. It always comes down to, you know, hate speech or people deciding
Who
what
defines hate speech?
yeah, I know.
You know?
I agree. But that always becomes the modern excuse. Well, you can't allow hate speech. Well, then you know, you can't have free speech because you're and don't get me wrong, I don't want every social media platform, every news station to be spouting nothing but hate speech,
You know
but
what I consider hate speech? Talking about Mississippi State in a good way. That's hate speech.
yeah,
Now you're gonna go to jail if you say anything good about Mississippi State. How about that?
or cheering for LSU,
That's
that's hate
right.
speech
That's right.
to me.
If you
No.
mention Lane Kiffin, it's off to the brig for you.
Yeah. Um, oh, speaking of which, if you're wondering, why we missed several weeks, I'd say Ole Miss is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
We just got kicked out of the playoffs.
Don't describe it that way. Actually,
That's how it feels.
well,
That's how it feels to me.
we had earlier than desirable exit. However, we played every game that you could possibly play this year except for one.
Yeah.
Uh, we got we had an early dismissal in the semifinal, but we had the most incredible year we've ever had. 13 wins. Um, Even though we had to play one of those teams twice, we beat every team we faced
Mhm.
this year.
Yeah, we lost to Georgia, and then we were all super pleased that we beat them in the playoff, and then lost to Miami, and that's how we ended up being out of it. But yeah, despite my initial being upset about us being out, we definitely did really well, and credit to the players and Pete Golding, and I give no credit to Lane Kiffin. I don't care I don't care what anybody says.
That's
I'm not
right.
giving any credit to Kiffin. But,
Pete Golding still has two more playoff wins than Kiffin does.
yeah, yeah, no, but in all seriousness, the players and the coaches definitely should be commended. It was a really good season.
Amen.
And if you know anything about Ole Miss fans, we have suffered for many, many years
Amen.
of not coming anywhere near the playoffs. So it was nice.
I was a fan when Billy Brewer was the coach. And if you don't know who Billy Brewer is, there's a good reason for that.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, it was fun. I hope we can make it that far again. Well, not only make it that far, but make it to the national.
Well, we're
next
doing
year.
really good in the portal right now. That's one of the things that I'm proud of, and hopefully we're just reloading for another year. And even though the NCAA is trying to hold Trinidad Chambliss back, we're going to have a judicial hearing, and we're going to make sure that he gets in for another year for his final year of eligibility.
Yeah. Hey, before I forget real quick, if you enjoy the content, and you like the podcast, please like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And if you don't like us, then what are you doing watching us? Nah, and also if you want to comment, whether it's good or bad, I'm happy to. I do my best to
And if you don't like
write my
us,
own comments.
tell all your friends so they can watch us and not like us too.
Yeah, tell all your friends to watch us and hate on us. Every interaction helps.
That's right.
But yeah. And also you'll hear me talk about Riverside a lot. Riverside is a partner of ours. They help us save a lot of time on back end production. So We'll post a link somewhere about Riverside. If you're an aspiring content creator, or video creator, you might be interested in them. They usually save us a good 2 or 3 hours when we're finished with our recording and we're editing, and they have this cool artificial intelligence producer feature, which it'll break your video or your recording into different chapters, and it also helps us quickly narrow down what we want to use for short clips. Um, so it's a time saver. It helps us a lot. But like I said, we'll post a link somewhere about that. Um, but what were we talking about just then? Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Um, yeah, I everything that I've read has acted like we've been doing well as far as the portal goes. Um, I did see something the other day about it looked like LSU maybe snatched one of our players, but it seems like by and large we're doing okay.
Yeah, we're doing good. Uh, we are, of course, you always you know how it is. I don't have a problem with it. Pete Golding can pick up whoever he wants because I think he's a good dude. But what are the main people that were picked up when Kiffin was there? Offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What are the main people that were picked up this year? Defensive. Whenever Pete Golding's at the helm, which is okay.
Yeah.
We needed some defensive players, but we need to not neglect our offense as well.
Nah, I agree for sure. Although, and again, it was a good season, so I'm not bashing the players, but it felt like to me when we played Miami that the defense lost that game because I don't know. Anytime you score more than 30 points, to me, that's a defensive loss. And especially considering that I don't know what their tailback's name was, but I think he was number 4. But
Yeah,
that
Frazier.
that dude was every carry getting 6 or 7 yards.
Yeah, it was doing good.
And we couldn't stop him.
That's right. We on paper, just watching the differences. I mean, they held the ball for nearly 40 minutes in the game, which was 2/3 of the game. We should have been nowhere close, but our offense stayed close. Our defense did let them score some points, but not nearly as many as they could have. They did a decent job of stopping for a while. When it was in difficult times, we made some key plays. But offense, if we hadn't had our offense this year, we would have lost, or hadn't had a good offense, we would have lost several games because it was one of those years where a lot of times we had to outscore opponents. So.
Yeah. Ooh, I hope that one.
Where we had to tremendously outscore opponents. We had to score a lot of points to win.
Yeah.
So.
I was wondering. I just let out a bit of a belch, and I was like, I wonder if they they caught on to that. It's weird since I'm having to act as producer today. It's weird trying to
back to the old days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not that it's super difficult, but having to play with the board and all this stuff while you're trying to talk, and sometimes you forget to get away from the mic when you
miss you,
when you
Jack.
make a noise or something. Yeah. Yeah. Nah, I'm either he'll be back or we'll figure something out, but I'm pretty sure he's coming back. Yeah.
Pray for Jack having a little bit of car trouble today.
Yeah. Yeah, he did have some car trouble, which is no fun. I've certainly had that happen to me several times where I think his battery's dead and he needs a new battery, but
we'll see about starting to GoFundMe.
Yeah. Fortunately, that's if you can get somebody to take you to get a new battery, it's pretty manageable, but I guess the new battery nowadays probably sets you back $300
I'm
maybe.
gonna tell you,
they've gotten a little higher.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
Along with everything else.
Yep. But yeah, he'll be fine. And I've been needing to and Chris knows this, I was acting as the producer when we were doing audio only, but ever since we started doing video, we've been lucky enough to have Jack helping us. So it's weird trying to do it, uh, be the producer and be the speaker when you're doing video, because I'm trying to think about looking at the camera and looking at Chris, and yeah, it's interesting, but
It's where we'll be leaning on Riverside, this weekend.
yeah, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be having to look at Riverside a pretty good bit. Um, I feel like there was another issue. Like I said, it's been so many weeks since we've done one.
There
Um,
was a couple of things that I mentioned to you, last couple of days of financial, especially one of them was Home Depot that we
oh
talked
yeah,
about.
tell me what you told me again about Home Depot.
Uh, at this point last year, they were $2 billion less in ticket sales than they were in 2024. So for the first 6 months of 2025, they made $2 billion less than they did the previous year in 2024. Uh, that's with an increase, because of inflation. That's
Uh-huh.
with the increase of a ticket sale. Every ticket on average was $90 more than the previous year, and they were still $2 billion behind.
Yeah, I'm I'm not one to have the desire to come up with excuses for, why people sometimes struggle with their finances because, and I'm not knocking anybody that has financial trouble, but what you understand when you start to learn more about building wealth is that most of the time, the reason that you're having a problem, you can blame on yourself. And to a lot of people, that sounds really mean. Oh, you're saying it's all my fault. No, I'm not saying it's all your fault, but I am saying that it's mostly your fault. And until you can recognize that about your own finances, just like with being a follower of Christ, if you don't acknowledge that you're a sinner, you're not going to get anywhere. you know, it's like trying to pedal a bike with no wheels.
That's right.
You have to determine that at least some of this is my fault. Um, but anyway, where I was getting at with that is that shoot, where was I
Home
going with that?
Depot
Yeah, Home Depot. Um,
taking responsibility for those losses.
yeah, I mean, well, the housing thing is where I was going with it. A lot of people are having difficulty, especially younger people, being able to afford a home. And yeah, some of that is bad luck. Prices are way higher than they used to be. Wage increases are not what they should have been, but I don't want to be like every other financial guru and tell you that there's nothing you can do, just woe is you. I don't want you to only think like a victim. I want you to be able to lift yourself up a little bit and take a little bit of accountability. Yeah, I know it's tough, and we have some disadvantages where maybe some other generations have had advantages, but we also need to recognize that we have advantages that previous generations didn't have, like computer technology and the internet. And, um, but I say all that to say that because so many people feel like homes are so much more expensive now, I feel like that's probably the main cause for the profit loss of Home Depot is just because everything's gotten so much more expensive. Um, yeah, and people are trying to at times like these force people and especially younger people to decide what's most important, you know. So yeah, it always comes back to supply and demand. If the demand's not there, then that tells you that people don't, you know, feel like their money would better serve them in other categories, I guess.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I imagine that eventually things will get better and that they'll recover from that. And sometimes businesses just have bad quarters. Like sometimes there's no long term reason as to why the bad quarter happened. It happens from time to time. So if they continue to have bad quarter after bad quarter, eventually, it'll be obvious that something's really wrong. But well, even just having one bad year doesn't necessarily mean that the business is in big trouble. Um, Especially as large as they are. I forget exactly what their market cap is, but I want to say Home Depot is worth probably $250 billion, something like that. So they're a very big company, and they can. If there's a company that should be able to weather a temporary storm, it's them. So they should be okay, I would think. Um, but regardless of how big you are and how much money you have, uh, bleeding out $2 billion is always going to be a big deal. Um,
Well, I can tell you any news that a corporation has to report with losses that ends in billion
yeah,
is not good news.
no,
But
to most of us, yeah, that is a jaw dropping or eye popping figure. But we now live in the age where we have companies. I want to say I'm going to be off a little bit, but at one point, Nvidia was worth $5 trillion. Now
sure.
it may have dropped a little bit from that. It might be 4 point something trillion, but yeah, we are now in the age of $1 trillion companies. Um,
Well, I bet if, and this is just my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong if you think I am. But when the numbers came out that said $2 billion loss, I believe there were probably people at the top that were wringing hands
yeah,
and saying, oh my," you know?
yeah. Oh no, they're definitely gonna when they're having their board meetings or shareholder meetings, somebody's definitely gonna gripe about a $2 billion loss for sure. Like there's no doubt about it. And they're gonna want to know, and that's why businesses or part of the reason why businesses become as wealthy as they do is because they care about those little issues. Even if it's just let's take Microsoft for example. Microsoft has so many different sectors of their business, and let's just take the video game platform Xbox, for example, if they even saw that they were hemorrhaging money from, I imagine, what's a very small piece of their business with the Xbox, they'd be freaking out over that, I would imagine. So they, any successful business is in part successful because they pay a lot of attention to their expenses, not only the income that they're receiving, but their outgoing expenses and their overhead. Um, so yeah, it's definitely a concern. But like I said, hopefully,
What how would you view this as for instance, I'll just ask you this, who would you consider I almost said it. Who would you consider Home Depot's main competition?
yeah. Uh, I'm sure it would be Lowe's, right?
Okay. Well,
Walmart and Lowe's, maybe.
let's look at it from this standpoint. Would you be more concerned if I told you over that same time period that Lowe's did not have any trouble? In fact, they had a
Ah, okay.
financial increase.
Yeah. Well, when you say that, that is a little odd. Then I don't. I wonder why Home Depot would. Maybe people feel like their prices are
I don't
more
know.
unfair.
I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that either. It's odd to me that because I was thinking it would be an industry wide thing, but if it was just Home Depot, then I don't know what caused
Yeah,
it.
it would concern me, from that standpoint, uh, if those that I would consider an equal with me or on par with me or my competition did not have the same trouble. It would seem that it was an isolated, loss to us. There would be some kind of things to look into there.
Yeah, actually, that would concern me more than if it was an industry wide thing because now I'm thinking somebody screwed up really bad, and now we got to figure out who in our company screwed up to where we hemorrhaged
Right.
$2 billion.
Now I haven't I just
Um,
looked that up. I haven't done any research into it, and, j strictly because I haven't heard it mentioned. The only thing
yeah,
I heard was that Home Depot had trouble, and then my immediate thoughts were, I didn't hear anything about Lowe's, so it wasn't a home improvement problem, it was apparently just a Home Depot problem.
yeah, I don't know what the reason for that would be.
I'll have to do some more research into that,
Yeah,
but
I'll look into it too because I'm curious. But I mean, in some ways, it's good that you don't have that industry wide trend because that means that at least you don't have long term issues to worry about, maybe in your business. But
it does put more pressure on Home Depot at the
yeah,
top if it
yeah,
wasn't industry-wide.
yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Uh, Sometimes companies have what they call one off large expenses that aren't always, they don't always give the public full details on that.
Mhm.
There are even with all the SEC guidelines and the requirements for public companies on what they have to tell investors, there are always some things that they don't have to tell us, and
Could it be
I don't
from
like that.
strictly
But
from I know they have different avenues and different areas of focus in their organization. If you push something that you shouldn't have been pushing and you lost money, or you invested in something and put it out there that nobody wanted, that kind of thing, is it that big that we're talking about that big of losses just from making those kind of mistakes?
um, you mean like hemorrhaging 2 billion from making a small mistake? Is that what you're talking
Well,
about?
I mean, is it possible that you say, Home Depot has their own products or their
Hmm.
own line of products they sell that Lowe's doesn't, or they bring in a new product that people aren't interested in. Is that enough to make a $2 billion loss? Those kind of mistakes.
I guess it could be. I'm not gonna say that that was the cause, but I mean, if it's a product that you launched in every store, I don't know how many stores they have. I imagine it's thousands of
Sure, sure.
stores, but I mean, if there's enough lacking, well, but see, like you said before, what confuses me is the fact that it's just isolated to Home Depot and it's not an industry wide loss of demand trend. Since it is only Home Depot, uh, I'll just have to do research and try to figure out what would have caused that. But yeah, to answer your question, one, I don't know if one product would cause that big of a hit, but if they brought in several new products that people didn't like, I mean, maybe it could result in a hit that large.
Home Depot
Um,
has 2,300 stores across the nation. Lowe's has 1,750.
yeah,
That Lowe's has fewer.
yeah. It would, I don't know. It might would be a stretch to say that changing out a few products would lead to that big of a hit, but I
There's
don't know.
definitely there's definitely something up with that though.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
there's something behind it. Um, it I don't know.
Now they're not the only ones. There's smaller industries. There's smaller chains of stores. There's local places that are one offs in every town. Uh, but generally, it's been my experience that the smaller mom and pops, and you may, you know, there's always reasons for that too. But generally, the smaller mom and pops cost more than the big box stores do. And
Yeah. Well, that I'm sure you're right about that. Because I think what I believe is the reason for that is because bigger businesses are able to buy more of the
same
product
principle with
and get
Walmart.
better prices. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Walmart is actually exactly what I was thinking of. Um, when you have the largest organization when it comes to buying any kind of commodity or product, they're always going to have an advantage because they're placing larger orders.
Sure.
I've heard that that's also the case with, uh, you know, certain brands that have more gas stations than other brands can probably get their gas a little cheaper.
right.
because they're ordering more of that commodity.
They're able to make it up in the volume
Yeah.
and undercut you a few cents.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep. And it's even if it is just a few cents to those of us that care about our finances, that gives you a big competitive advantage because if I can get a product that I feel is just as good as yours for cheaper, why would I not get the cheaper one?
right,
You
right.
know? So I mean it definitely makes a difference. Um but yeah, I'll have to try
Which
to
is the reason that Amazon has made such a big kick and a big push in the financial world that, when you change the way Walmart does business, you have done something.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It like and I guess one recent example would be I'm sure you know what DoorDash is and uh I feel like DoorDash and Uber sort of well and Instacart. Do you know what Instacart
Oh,
is?
yeah.
I feel like all of those things forced Walmart to decide, hey, we've got to give people an option to
And
for
and
grocery delivery. Yeah.
indirectly, at least, all of those businesses that you just mentioned piggybacked off of Amazon's success.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because
All this.
originally Amazon was strictly an online sales, and people thought, "Oh gosh, well, look, people are willing to stay at home and still purchase."
Yeah. I remember I want to say it was one of the early potential investors or executives of DoorDash. One of them was selling somebody else some equity in the business, some ownership in the business. And they were having this discussion where he was like, I don't know, even though I want you to invest, I don't know why anybody would invest in this because, who's going to be lazy enough to not get their food? It's hilarious listening to that because you're like, oh, now it's a huge hit. Yeah, I guess it goes to show that
Well,
you
I'll tell
can.
you this, I can understand that it was a huge risk, but at the end of the day, look at what it's paid off. Look how
Oh
it's
yeah,
paid off.
yeah,
Look, the days are long since past where Jeff Bezos was selling books out of his garage.
yeah. I mean, imagine just pitching the first iPhone. You're like, any new pitch that nobody's ever heard of is gonna be a weird thing to talk about.
Can you imagine like the board meetings? And they're like, Steve, man, look at all these companies that are already making phones, and you want to put one out there?
Yeah.
And the thing is, and you understand that basically them and Samsung are all that's left now.
Hmm.
I mean, I know there's other people that do, but dude, they're a fraction. Apple is a juggernaut.
Oh yeah, yeah, they are. And I mean, it's obviously they're not the only one doing what they're doing now, but what made them so successful and the largest market share is, probably Steve Jobs and then
Was taking
whoever.
the chance on the iPhone.
Yeah, and he was never they were never satisfied by what they did. They made a little bit better phone and they're like, well, it needs a calculator, it needs an app store.
And
It
imagine
and it just never stops.
the years and years and years that they probably could have pocketed a little bit more money than they did, but they put it back into R&D, and now look what they are because they invested all that money into their engineering of a better product, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, and once you become a really big business, if you're if you make halfway decent choices, it becomes a little easier to build a bigger moat around yourself because once you get to a certain size, you don't even necessarily have to come up with your own ideas anymore. Now you can just buy other businesses
That's
and
right.
incorporate them into your business. And uh, like I'm sure we've talked about this before, but like I've said before, it's good for the business, but eventually it becomes bad for the consumer because now you're having more and more power in the hands of fewer and fewer people.
That's right.
And you get these massive corporations that, like we've talked about before, now the S&P 500, 10 or so companies are 36% or more, probably 40 by now of the S&P 500. Um, yeah, but yeah, and the other problem with the concentration being in the hands of so few is typically, in my opinion anyway, what keeps a society innovating and creating good and new products is a large amount of competition. And business people, whether they admit it or not, if you're a businessman or a businesswoman, almost guarantee you hate competition because it hurts your competition, at least initially hurts your business because somebody is taking a portion of your market share away from you. But you could also argue that in the long term, competition is good because it forces you to get better at whatever you're doing or innovate. Um,
And I have heard, eh, not just from one, but I've heard several CEOs talk about innovate or die
yeah,
in their different types of businesses.
yeah. Business is a very, for the most part, adapt or die. Because I mean, there are a lot of businesses that last a few years and sometimes even 10 or 20 years, and then they encounter a problem that they are unable to solve and the business goes under. I
Sure.
mean, take Blockbuster for one of the
Yeah.
best examples. Netflix says, "Hey, we'll send you a DVD in the mail," and
That's
then
another one that you thought, "What are they doing? What is this? What is this? What does Netflix think they're doing?"
even the funny thing is, even when I first signed up to get to where I was like, "I'll try to get a DVD in the mail," even when I first signed up for the first time, I was like, "This is probably a dumb
I
idea,"
mean, you
but then I
understand that originally Netflix was only a DVD vending machine.
yeah. And but then I got that first DVD from him or whatever, and I was like, "You know what? This is pretty cool. I like this." And, I guess a lot of other people had similar reactions, and here
Think
we
about
are, you
this.
know?
I know it wasn't available then, but think about had you been able to invest them, and then when they were just vending machines, in front of a Walgreens, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that's really what investing boils down to, right? Is we want to be able to make those decisions about the future today, right
Right,
now, you
right.
know? It's always easy to look back and be like, "Oh, man, I wish I would've caught Amazon. Wish
You
I
know,
would've caught Apple."
one of the problems with me is I've never been able to look at an industry and go, "They're gonna succeed."
Yeah.
That was never been a strong suit of mine.
Well, what hurts my feelings a lot of days is I'm like, "You know what? I did sort of." I feel like when I was a kid, I had the ability more to see something that's becoming more of a trend.
Yeah, yeah.
Something about having a child's mind, and maybe this is part of why, in scripture, God tells us, like, unless you know what I'm talking about. What is that scripture? Unless you become like a child, you
Oh,
will
yeah,
not
yeah.
enter the
Right, right.
there is something about the mind of a child where your creativity and your thought process hasn't been polluted yet by the broader world.
Optimism
Yeah,
and the thought, the possibility of you are much more optimistic about
everything.
good coming
Yeah,
from things.
yeah, and it's I don't know something. I can't obviously I don't have that same thought process anymore, but I can still. I'm still young enough to where I can vaguely remember being a child and what it felt like, and I remember that every day the sun felt like it was a little bright, you know.
Oh,
You
sure,
definitely are
sure.
very optimistic when at least if you grow up in a good home. There may be I'm sure there are folks that are like, "I hated my childhood," but for most of us in our natural state as a child, um,
There was a sense of wonder
yeah.
that went away,
Yep,
you know,
yep,
the older you got,
that's
you know?
exactly it. That sense of wonder, I think, is also what enables us to sometimes be able to spot broad trends that sometimes as adults we have trouble
Sure.
with. Um, and I also felt like I was more artistic and creative as a child than I am now. Something, especially once you start studying a topic like finance, you know, you're not going to meet too many people that are an artist and a finance guy. You know,
That's right.
they're very like different sides of the brain. That's why you have so many artists that see a guy in a suit and that, you know, that's what they call corporate people is this they call you a suit. You've got the artist in the suit, you know, um, and their thought processes are usually very different. from one another. Because the artist wants to do everything just as nice as it can be, which is understandable. But then you have the suit that comes along and says that you're trying to go over our budget, um, and so they, at least my understanding in the film industry, they really don't like each other too much. But
That's right.
I mean, you got to have both of them,
That's right.
especially the artist to give it a good direction. So, but yeah, let's see. I imagine we're probably pretty deep into this thing now. Yeah. Um, yeah. So thank you all for joining us. Sorry we took such a long break, and hopefully you'll see this recording. But yeah, I think we will end it here. So thanks for joining again, Chris, and we will see you
Oh, yeah.
guys hopefully next week.
Adios.
Yep. See you later.